Hello and welcome to the new episode of Muffin YouTube channel. In this tutorial, we're gonna start to learn shade and smooth. Let's get started. Before we start, did you think if our objects don't have any kind of shades, what they are look like? Okay, they are look like this. If we don't have any kind of shade and then we just see like this kind of images. I'm just covering that up scene collection, and you cannot actually describe what is what really, because there might be sphere, cone, or cylindrical object, or like that, right? And also this is looks like cube, but there might be a plane, there might be a rectangular but big building, but we cannot actually see the difference, right? Because we don't see anything, and if we don't have any kind of shade and we don't describe it clearly, so we need to understand our geometry is good, our geometry is perfect. So I'm here in the shading mode, in just solid and shading mode. I'm just using the light flat. If I change my lighting to studio, and as you can see, I'm actually describe it but not very clearly, right? Okay, this is might be a little bit different, and this is look like Taurus, and this looks like monkey, and I just see my object actually shades, and then I start to describe it, and so we need to understand shade. So in here actually we see in Blender shade and other things as shadow, but I actually find that perfectly described shadow and shade what they are look like. I'm actually giving to this video's link under the description, and also actually comment down below and you can reach them what is the actually shade and shadow and what is their differences. But I just came here to understand our objects shading smooth. In here, as you can see, we have similar objects, right? So in here actually I'm just seeing my on the objects, it's a little bit shadow things, right? This is a not shadow actually, this is we call actually shade. Why? Because the actually light source cannot reach other side of actually objects. If I change this my viewport, and they are not reach that spot every time, but not really. I have actually my light source in real time. We see just one side of the actions. This is the actually what we see in real life, the shadows and shade, right? But also we see behind this black actually side to another object, we see the shadow. Shade on our objects actually faces different tones, but shadows are our objects shadows is actually drops another objects, and as you can see, this is my objects actually shadows. If I actually look at this looks like our objects tone brighter and tones actually darker. If I have on my surface, and this is actually shade. In Blender we can actually show our objects this kind of shadings to smooth options, so that if I select my object and right click and I'm in object mode, and in here under the object context menu we have shade options. As you can see, if I click the shade smooth, and you can see on my objects shades just like smoothing. And also it's a little bit weird because we have a flat surfaces. That kind of flat surfaces not actually behave like that. So we need to do second things. It is shade auto smooth options. If you have under the actually 3.3.1 versions, you actually don't see this kind of options, and you see just shade smooth and shade flat. If you don't see under the object context menu shade smooth, shade auto smooth, you actually lower than my version 3.3.1, then you just select your object, go and under the properties tab, go to object data properties. Under the normals, you have to turn on auto smooth option there, and as you can see, my objects actually show to me perfectly looking shading their faces. It works very well. Next one is actually cone. Like here, if I make shade smooth, and I can see more big darker side. Why is that looks like? We need to open that actually auto smooth again, and also this is looks like it's very perfect to show that things. And also sometimes, as you can see, we have a UV sphere there, and we just actually make this kind of object shade smooth. Why is that? Because our objects actually looks like perfect, so that I'm just making that shading options to smooth. And you can actually see in the render viewport too. Actually, if you render in your scene, you can see it too. I'm just click my object and right click and shade smooth to use. As I said before, if we have cubic or like rectangular objects, if we give this object the shade smooth, that is not works properly because of their faces. These faces actually orientations perpendicular to any face, right? In here, our actually surfaces like here, and also our actually axis, for example, like 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, and we have a problem. In Blender, we actually solve that kind of problem to actually using our object's data properties. Under the properties, go to object properties, and in here, in right side, and I'm just shrink that, and go to normals and auto smooth option to actually turn on. And as you can see, your objects perfectly smoothing your shadings. And as you can see, this is all of that kind of information we need to know. Under the solid mode, I'm just changing my viewport shading to solid mode, and I just see my objects whatever I see, right? But I can change it too. So if you are in solid mode, if you are in viewport shading, go under the shading, this little looking down arrow, and open the viewport shading under lighting, and we see studio, MatCap, and things. What are they? This is displaying using just like different kind of lighting to interact with and showing different our objects, not material. Okay, not material, just like different kind of actually style. In here in studio, we actually click this area and we see different kind of options there. You can change it just like select, and here studio lighting setup is rim object, and as you can see the rim setup is there. I just actually see my object giving to rim light like this. So we have different kind of options too in here MatCap, and you can see display using MatCap material and lightning, different kind of actually things to it's a prepared. For example, the first thing actually this is check rim dark or light, and you can actually check your object to see what your objects look like under that kind of situation. For example, in here, and I'm just seeing just like the clay brown and seeing my objects like this. This is not material, just showing your objects like this. And also sometimes you have to actually make an animation to fast way to see your actually object reaction to your camera. For example, before you render animation, you have to try it. So if you have actually like this kind of MatCap actually lightning setup and you are seeing like this, and actually before you render your material under this, actually before your material to render, sometimes you need to understand and you prepare for actually test animations. Let's actually prepare for this scene test animations. So let's get started. I'm just selecting my point and just like turn off in here. And also you can actually go to viewport and you have just a grid of an axis like that maybe, and you can see a lot of things and also like this. And let's actually prepare for our scene. Turn off the 3D cursor, origins and extras, and floor, grid and axis turned off, and also like this we cannot see anything. And also let's create one camera, just like Shift A and camera in there, and press 0 to just like locate it, and also go to M panel. Okay, I have an animation for this, but click it here and select this one and 0 to select, and go to M panel, just like go to view, camera to view, just set your actually view here. For example, I'm just starting my test animations here, and then I'm just open that actually timeline and go to start with 1 and just here to click and 1 and enter, or you can just click here and then select your camera in here just like we actually wanted to, and go to properties tab, object properties, and turn on this key. The next one is goes 250, right? So go to another part and under like here, Okay, like this, and turn on this too. And now just turn off and go to just first of the frame, and then just press the play animation and see your animation is good or bad. You can just work with it. Okay, it works. Maybe you can just accept it. It's perfectly good. And then actually go to view and viewport render animation. But before you do, you actually go to render animations, animation option, go to render engine cycles and GPU mode. I'm just selected in. The output goes here. Go and select output anywhere. I just select it in here to animation, or just create new folder, test animation, and enter. Just select and accept. And also file format. You have actually, you are in maybe PNG, but for here, go to FFmpeg video and go to encoding actions, just like open it and go to Matryoshka MPEG4 and video codec. Okay, that is no problem. Medium quality to actually high quality, change it, and okay, it's okay, I guess. And then actually frame range, it's 1 here, 1, 2, and 250. It's okay, no problem. Then go to view and viewport render animation, and just like press here to render your animation, and just wait, and done. Okay, I'm closing this tab. I'm going to in my actually folder and seeing like here, and as you can see my objects there. It's just 10 seconds to see my object actually test animation. Okay, we are making like this kind of actually animation to start, because sometimes you need to understand this is actually true or not to see your object animation. Is this true? And then go to material tab and then just like give your point actions to see, and just like it is good or good to go, and then your proportion is okay, and then go to render and just like render your real animation. Okay, sometimes we see in here like this shading smooth options, right? Why actually our object's faces behaves like that? So we need to understand that surface has a lot of face, right? This kind of sphere. Right click and shade flat, and you can see a lot of actually faces, right? So I'm just click viewport shading studio and just like default action, and here you can see a lot of faces there. This kind of shades, it's all about related to your object face normals because of that. So we need to understand this kind of shading, and just like shade smooth and shade auto smooth and also shade flat. If you don't see again shade auto smooth, go to select your object and go to normals and auto smooth in here, just like that. And sometimes this is not works, but I'm just seeing in here why I cannot actually don't auto smooth here. I'm actually open that again, the same thing, and as you can see my camera just active there, and I'm just looking for in here up and see my camera active, but I cannot do in here the auto smooth, right? As you can see, why? Because it works in actually camera, not my object auto smooth, and it's not actually what you look like. And as you can see, I give this object and also by context object data use auto smooth false, but if I use this and it's actually clears, okay, just like here to show that, and also you can see whatever I see actually, right? So if you have some kind of this problem, for example like this, and you see auto smooth actions, then actually more than you think, this is auto smooth is difference, not like working like here, and as you can see, and it is not same, it is not even same. As you can see, if I make any type of actions, I cannot do anything in here. If I do, and just has a problem. So if you're confronting this issue, it's the same, no problem for that, and you have to same problem. This looks like a blended program, just goes like here. We have a actually problem for that kind of options. So like that. So let's get continued. And I don't know why is that. Maybe is that a problem or not. I'm really select and make auto smooth. And okay, sometimes the shade auto smooth not work properly. Shade smooth works, and another objects go to auto smooth, and like that. As you can see, this not works. And under the C, just like auto smooth turn off, right click, shade smooth, and you can actually work with like here. We see the shading stuff and also actually face things. We need to pay attention to actually create any type of objects, because our object faces, our object surfaces actually reacts our lights. If you select your monkey and Suzanne, right click and shade smooth, and as you can see, we have differently, we see actually this kind of weird stuff. Why? Because our object needs something else, some kind of more actually edges and more faces to understand this flat surfaces is not real. So selecting your object and also giving your object subdivision surface modifier, it can help you. For example, level of viewports, and as you can see, if I give this object subdivision, and as you can see, my actually faces changes, right? The shading smooth is as well, they just help us. And you can see actually our object has a lot of faces, so needs a lot of faces, but sometimes it's look like 4 it's better or 5 it's good. But if you make like this, and you have a problem for actually vertices, edges and faces, so you need to actually back up there, and this here levels of viewport, and just like 2, seeing this, it's perfectly seeing. But render, you need to actually add in the render, it actually helps to you. So like here, and as you can see, our object needs more faces than we think. For example, like this, if we have just like this torus, and I'm giving to this torus the subdivision surface a lot of, but if I give this more, and okay, it's look like actually smooth surface, but they don't actually, they have this kind of flat surface. If I look this, and it has so many big, but we can do this, but also just like giving to just one division, subdivision, and right click and shade smooth, and as you can see, we just solved this problem to show our actually showing our actually objects to solve this problem. So if you need some kind of more information, you need to add also subdivision, and like that. So you have a perfect object. But if you don't actually shading flat, if you are in and just giving to one subdivision, it's not worth it, it's not working, because you need to actually smooth your object's shade. Okay, right click and shade smooth, and in here right click and shade smooth. If you have like this, again shade flat, and as you can see, I see my object's shade and faces, so I need actually give this object a shading smooth to see smooth objects. This is not giving more actually edges or faces. This is just like smoothing and just like tricking the face information to see it is more than we think. There are more than we think face actually appears, but actually in reality it's not. It's just like smoothing your shading like that. So if you have just before in here the more lower subdivision levels, and you just see your actually face, but if you have more, and you can just see improperly your object faces. So like that, before you actually do, you need to understand flat surfaces has like 90 degrees faces orientation, and also we have a shade flat to see different kind of face orientation to see, and their actually shadings, and we need to understand this kind of mindset. Okay, if I give this shade smooth and this is not true, so that you can actually work with that. This is auto smooth options there also, and also you can just select your object, go to object data properties, add normals, just turn on this auto smooth section there. But you understand, right? This is these objects have actually flat surfaces like this because of the faces. If you look for more closely, and you see this is, looks like this, and this face look like this, and also other objects has so many, and also like here, and I'm just giving this a little bit actually information to do this, sorry for that. As you can see, this is kind of weird actually. Edges just like goes here, and these objects look like here, just perfectly perpendicular of this face. And as you can see, this face is too, because these edges actually more than we think, this is more than we think, this perpendicular. But if you see these kind of faces, we see it's actually looks like this kind of face orientation is there, right? So if this is, looks like this face look like there, and like this looks like this, and we see the objects. And as you can see, this is a flat too. This like looks like this, and this face look like this. But the right side, actually the nearest this lateral side, we can see a lot of faces to actually orientations is different. So that I'm just clear to do this, so annotations just like go off, and you can understand these kind of face things.